500 people in. They said they encountered 8,500 people in one day. They shut the border down.
So you're in the Matrix, or is it just me?
It's just you. It's just you. Regarding hello. Regarding this bill, there's one issue that's been talked about forever, and even today, that I don't have an answer for, and I want to bring up this issue and see if anybody is interested. It's a fact that the news has constantly reported, as it's been discussed here, that allegedly all Republicans were in favor of the bill, ready to vote for the bill, and then Trump quashed it. Trump told everybody, don't vote for it, but because I want to get elected. I am not familiar with one congressperson, one senator, even Donald Trump, who has gone on the record and said that this is a true statement, that everybody was going to vote for it, but Trump quashed it. We know that many reporters have reported this, but if anybody knows anybody that's gone on the record to say, yes, I was going to vote for it, but Trump told us not to, so I didn't, I'd love to know who went on the record to say that, if anybody's interested in that.
Steve, you do know, just for the way that I understood the process, and I'm welcome to be corrected, the House Speaker didn't bring the goddamn bill to the floor. So what I'm saying is, the bill was, here's the facts as I know them, right? And then I wanted to just briefly, Mojo, that I'm going to back off. I don't want to hog the whole stage as I've already done with me and Mojo. But let me just say 2 points. The issue is, the House Speaker killed the bill. The Congress didn't kill the bill. The Congress didn't vote the bill down. The Congress on the bill in caucus with the Democrats. They had their best working deal to send billions of dollars to the process, to send Border Patrol, to have reasonable mechanisms in place to kill all of the illegal immigration for whatever it's worth, to deport who they needed to deport. It was a comprehensive immigration bill that had been worked on in Congress for a long time, right? With the Republicans. Donald Trump called the House Speaker and said, House Speaker, don't even bring that shit to the floor.
And Mike Johnson, who is the House Speaker, did he ever acknowledge what you just said as being true?
I don't think he's going to say ever in the history of the world. You know what? I did shelf that bill so I could politicize it and allow Donald Trump.
So just if I may, just for shits and giggles, you're not aware of any single person like me who went on record and said I would have voted for the bill, but because of Donald Trump, I didn't, right?
Okay, hold on, Steve. I think I'll just try one more time.
Okay.
How would they say that if the bill didn't come to the floor, Steve? So let me just finish the point, Steve, and I promise I'll pass it over to you. What I'm saying is, regardless of who said what and who didn't say what, nobody said that this didn't happen. But what we know for a fact is they worked for a bill for a long time. They worked on a comprehensive bill between both parties. Both parties were agreeing with it. Why? Because they're the ones who put it together. There were lead Republicans on the bill. It was a comprehensive immigration bill, which we needed, which Trump didn't put together in his first term, right? And then what happened is it did not come to the floor for a vote the way I understand it, right? So that's factual. Now, that's the fact. You guys can,
No. What you just said is factually correct.
Right. So let me just get to this point. I promise you, Steve, and I'm done. So with Mojo, hey Mojo, if you post something, I'll read it, man. I'll read it. I'm probably, unless Congress is paying me, I'm probably never gonna read a whole fucking bill ever. So I probably don't need to be in Clubhouse by your standards for whatever it's worth. I'm never reading a whole bill from the United States Congress unless I wrote this under the show. And I'm not planning on writing it in 2025. But you know, I was making.
Hold on.
No, that's one point. I promise you, just one point. Hey, Mojo, if you have information with regards to the shutdown and that process and that threshold and who opposed it, I would love to read any articles referring that. Here's how I understood it. I understood it as the shutdown, partial shutdown, or what have you. Our border is not open. Our border is never open. Our border always has patrols. Our border always has a partial fence. Our border has always had checkpoints where you have to show multiple IDs. Our border has always had people looking over it to make sure no illegals come over. That's never not been the process. What I understood in terms of the threshold with the shutdown is actually shutting down so nobody can get in, right? Not even legal people going back and forth. When there's a permanent shutdown, it reduces, unless you're a citizen, anybody coming in through that particular border. So I said that the threshold wasn't about, hey, let's have a few thousand people a day come on in. That's not what it is. So I think people are speaking about what an actual shutdown is. A shutdown is not necessary unless it's an emergency if the process is working properly. So what we needed is just a proper working system with enough people to make sure that nobody gets into our country. And I think we all agree on that. I'll land.
Yeah, let me just read some math to you, just so to put some figures. So in the 2016 election, happens in November, so you take office in January. So we'll start at 2017. In 2017, encounters at the southwest border were 450,000. That was 2017. That was Trump's first year in office. His second year, 2018, 600,000. Trending up, right? What a bad guy. In 2019, 850,000. Right, continuing to trend up, and then in 2020 they have a dip, goes down to 405,000. We could attribute that perhaps to the pandemic, right? And then when you go to 2021, this is when Biden took office. Now remember, the numbers for Trump were 450,000, 600,000. 850,000, 405,000. In 2021, when Biden's first year in office, you set an all-time high of 1.7 million encounters, okay? 1.7 million. In 2022, a new record high, 2.76 million. In 2023, 2.8 million. So we keep breaking records. And the streak continues. 2024, nearly 3 million, for a total of 10.8 million encounters nationwide since 2021. That 10.8 million encounters. Now, if we go back and we do the math, when Trump was in office the first time, it's 450 plus 850, that's 13, right? Plus 6, that's 1.9, plus 4, plus another 4. So it's 4 times the amount. 4 times the amount. And my question is, what do you think went wrong when Biden came into office?
To be really honest with you, I don't actually know the exact details of what went wrong. I don't know why, I'll say this without being disparaging. I know people that are authoritarian typically break things so they can look like the person that fix it. I'll just leave it there.
I said the auto pen signing. The secretary signing for right.
When I said we need Roger back, because this Mojo guy keep losing debates. That Roger guy was pretty good.
Fascinating. Apparently, this Hakima guy doesn't like math. It stands for reason that the guy that believes that the earth is flat would disagree with math.
Hey, Mojo, for whatever it's worth, the argument happens because we've been sensationalized to hate each other and just argue these conflicting, contentious points because it's good for clubhouses and it makes them money, makes news money. But the point of the matter where we agree, we're arguing, but I don't want illegal immigration, right? So you're arguing with me based on what you heard other people say, right? So your angst isn't even for me, against me, because you don't even know my point. So I don't want illegal immigration, right? I do think that deportations are reasonable, right? I just think that the government, and we live in a country, my country, the United States of America, no more yours than it is mine, is a country of laws. And I think habeas corpus and due process is an important part for the United States. And I feel, just like for what it was worth, Obama did, where he had the highest number of deportations that were done for whatever it's worth, right, with due process. And I feel that, yes, we can have whatever his quota is for his ICE group is cool. but let's just do it humanely. And I think all of those objectives can be accomplished with the right system, the right funding, and a person who, as a leader, leads like the United States has always done. A nation of laws with compassion that cares about people and that has due process. So to literally be on the phone, on these apps arguing with each other when we typically agree on most of the shit, like whatever causes it, I know we're in a pandemic. I know
who's being robbed of due process? These people aren't being deported until after they walk out of the courtroom and the judge makes a verdict.
Well, so see, the information that I've seen is that there's a higher number of people are being deported without the case. Without having a case, right? Because the whole expedited process was supposed to be for violent criminals. So when Mojo gives the stat that 3,000 people are being deported a day and that 1,500 are not violent criminals, we just concerned whether it's 1 or it's 10. We don't want somebody's mama that accidentally got mistaken to sit in a jail cell for 2 months, right? So what we're saying is, which is just insane that, Americans, patriots that love the country wouldn't think that this is a good idea, is just to make sure that with these enforcement officers, that there's some humanity and that there's due process, which is a part of our Constitution. ICE isn't in the Constitution.
So
then
you have hold on one second, Chrissy. So CO, what's her name? The governor of New York, Holcomb, whatever her name is. She just had a press conference the other day. Even out of her own mouth, her only complaint was the saying it was a bullshit. Oh, inhumane, this and that. But even out of her own mouth, she said the way they're rounding these folks up after they leave the courtroom. She never mentioned once in her press conference that anybody was getting rounded up, getting their due process taken away from them. Out of her own mouth, she said that it was after they came out of the courtroom. She was just upset with how it's handled. But people are getting their due process. And if you got this expectation, CO, of perfection, understand friendly fire is a term for a reason. Even in fucking war, we've got American troops that kill other American troops by accident. Like, you're never going to get 100% perfection in any process, especially when you're talking about dealing with tens of millions of people. There's going to be 1 or 2 anomalies swept under the rug, unfortunately. It just happens. Even our prison system, there's a handful of people that are in there that did not commit a crime, but they got swept up because you're just dealing with a large number of people.
I get it, man. So basically, we're litigating in the conversation between me and you right now. Say, are there people that are getting due process violated, right? We don't really need to argue stats because at the end of the day, what we're saying is 1 person in jail is too many that deserve to be there.
You're asking for utopia. You understand perfection? The only thing that's perfect is death. That's the only thing that has a perfect count on this earth. And you're expecting perfection with imperfect human beings. Like
so this is why the perfecting of the Constitution and the ideas of America is always a North Star, right? So with perfection, right, we don't ever expect perfection in anything, right? But the Constitution is not perfect, right? But our North Star has always been to be a country that gives people due process. It was originally a country of immigrants. So I'm saying, no, it's not perfect. But to sit on the stage and we're talking about it's inconsiderate and it's leftist and it's terrible for me to speak with humanity about the treatment of human beings, that's all I'm saying. Why can't we circle around that?
But then when you start off your opening statement on that was they're not getting their due process. They are getting their due process. The vast majority are getting their due process.
Not all of them, though. All of them not getting due process.
Okay, but again, listen to what you guys are saying. All you guys are shooting for perfection. Yes, but not every. Hold on, man. Hold on. 1 second.
But that's the North Star for the country.
What I'm saying is this is where it's fucking. You guys sound like retards. You guys are expecting perfection. Well, not all. You said even if 1 person. Guess what? There's going to be 1 fucking person always. You're dealing with an imperfect human being. Hold on. You've been talking for a long time, and I've been listening. Let me get my point out. I've been respectful, and I'll let you talk. What I'm saying is when you start off your opening statement with, well, if 1, that's too many. Bro, bro, you're dealing with millions of people. It's not going to be a perfect process. And if your argument is going to be, well, everybody's got to be treated equally, you're never going to fucking win, and it sounds retarded.
Well, I see.
Hold on, before you go, I need to insert something here because the people are talking around this, and I think we should get some facts on the table. So, back in 1996, there was a bill that was passed, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act, which gave the federal government the authority to remove certain non-citizens without a hearing if they're apprehended shortly after entry and cannot prove lawful presence. So this is something that was passed back in 1996. I don't know if you guys are looking at the calendar, but that's quite some time ago. The only thing that's changed recently under the Trump administration is the Supreme Court also allowing for the expedited removals to go to third countries, and so that's the only change that's taken place since 1996 is that we can send them to we don't even have to send them back to their nation of origin. We can send them back to a third country, and we've selected a few to do that. And by the way, the bill was passed. So it became law in '96, and then this Supreme Court ruling that allowed for third country deportations. This just got passed by the Supreme Court. So what you're saying is you want the rule of law to be followed, and what my contention would be is that the rule of law is being.
Can I get it really quick?
Wait a second, CO, I got you. So let me just say this real quick, 2 seconds. I pinned an article to the top. Trump scores major win in birthright citizenship cases. Supreme Court curbs nationwide injunctions. So we're going to go CO and then PB. Cassie.
Hey, right. Hey, Mojo, let me just correct you briefly because you have a misunderstanding. I'm assuming you're not a lawyer, but you're super smart, right? Read if you could, because each letter of a bill or a law is important. Read, if you would, what you just said with that law, and let me just make a point to you so you understand what I mean, okay? What did you just say about the law that was passed in '96? How long can they be in the country for that exclusion to be able to have them deported immediately? How long?
Let me post it for everyone to read.
Okay, but just tell me how long can they be in the country for them to be able to be deported immediately?
I'm gathering my facts so I don't do what most of you do here on Clubhouse.
Okay.
Let me get that.
I don't do what you're saying. I only deal with what I know. So what I'm saying to you is, and this is where people have misinterpreted and why people get in these arguments, to your point, what you just said is not what Trump is doing. He's not deporting people that have only been in the country for a short amount of time. So basically he's saying, if you catch these people and they get across the border, they've been here for X number of days, deport them immediately. I agree with that. That's a law that should be followed. That's not what ICE is doing in your 1,500 number scenario, right? They're deporting people who've been a janitor for a school system for 15, 20 years. That law that you're talking about does not apply to people who have been in the country for more than a couple of years. So it's still splitting hairs, and I still agree with you, but don't use the argument about there's a law that supports them deporting people immediately using that 1996 law.
My question is...
Cool, say shut up. Be quiet.
I'm gathering the information, but I think page one.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I wanted to step back just to the due process thing. And by the way, I mean, I think due process is very important. I think it's a point to make sure that, we're talking about consistently. That's all fine. But the issue I have is we're not talking about it consistently, where, I'm glad Abrego Garcia came back and you'll have his day in court. And the one case I wanted to highlight, or one thing that happened under the Biden admin, is I think we remember the makeup artist that got sent to the prison, and people said, well, he's not a criminal, yada, yada, yada. So what happened when the Remain in Mexico was repealed is that a lot of people were crossing the border, whether they're claiming asylum or not, and we didn't have time to properly vet them. So border agents, at their discretion, were putting people in maximum security prisons and detention centers during that course, because you can't, just let a ton of people in and not vet them first, even though we do that. And so if we do care about due process, we have to think about all of the people with all of these illegal border crossings that ended up getting put into detention centers, and even the asylum claims where, maybe they have some type of asylum status, like the makeup artist, but someone decided his tattoos looked weird and they put him in jail. So I think we just can't be selective on where we care about due process.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and now read. I wanted to make sure I gathered the facts here. So the 96 bill would have allowed for 14 days and within 100 miles of the southwest border. In 2019, under Trump, that was expanded to under 2 years anywhere in the U.S. So you like if you entered illegally and there was see with the definition that they had. If you're apprehended anywhere in the country, not just the border, in 2019 they expanded this, so they had up to 2 years. And so the people that you're arguing for with, due process violations would have had to have entered unlawfully over 2 years ago. So if you have specific examples of that, then you would have a case. But if they've entered the country within the last 2 years and they're sent back, they don't get due process, and that's the U.S. law.
I'm going to push back just a tab. My understanding is no matter who you are or where you come from, as soon as you step foot on American soil, you are entitled to due process. Now, what that due process is and how that due process is played out depends on the law you've broken or allegedly broken, what you've been arrested for, and what the jurisdiction is. I can give cites in the Constitution to that. But if I could digress for just a moment, I just noticed something. It's probably because of my eyesight. JB, are you there? Can you unmute if you're there?
I'm here. What's up?
I want to ask you one question, but you can address this later. I just noticed for the first time that you have an orange-yellow star, which means you are a Clubhouse paid member. If you wanted to explain what your decision went into getting that, I would appreciate that, but we can talk about that later.
I don't know, $50 a year. I thought it was a good deal, and I like to go into spaces anonymously when people are talking shit about me.
Thank you, JB.
I could respond to you, Steve, on when it comes to matters of immigration. The Supreme Court believes that immigration's a matter for the executive and the legislative branch to have exclusive powers, and they've reinforced this in decisions like Klein-Deist versus Mandel in 1972 and Fiallo versus Bell in 1977. You could look up those cases if you like.
Hey, Roger, do you know if the bill of 2024 that was proposed by both parties included an amendment to the 1999 bill? And that's why I was asking you. Thank you for that correction to your earlier statement, Roger, that it is the 2019 where they amended it. I said 1 or 2 years because I couldn't remember. So thank you for that edit, and that is what we're working from. Do you know, Roger? Mojo. Do you know if the 2024 immigration bill included an amendment to the 2019 bill?
No, they're completely unrelated. They were working completely outside of the framework of the 96 and the 2019 amendment.
There was something in that bill that changed part of the amount of time that they got arrested. I thought they were trying to move it to 1 year or something like that. I could be wrong, but you're saying there was definitely no consideration for amending that part of that bill in the new bill, correct?
I will search it again, but I don't believe so. I don't believe there's been anything proposed to change that. But again, that would mean that the in order for those that are saying that, hey, people are getting deported without due process, in order for you to have an argument there, it would have to be people that entered here unlawfully and have been here for 2 years or more. So anyone that's yeah. So if you could find those cases, then you would have an argument. And by the way, it wouldn't shock me to find that there are violations of that. That the issue would be if you are deporting people, that have been here for more than 2 years, that would be in violation of the law, and through the court system, I'm sure you could get that record.
Mojo, if I may, Mojo, yeah, thank you. Mojo, just to follow up to what you said, and again, maybe my interpretation is wrong. Doesn't the 14th Amendment to our Constitution guarantee every person, no matter who they are, where they come from, that sets foot on our soil, due process, whatever due process might be?
Well, I've given you the exceptions that the Supreme Court's allowed for.
Fair enough. Thank you.
But my question is, when it comes to the writ of habeas corpus, like produce the body, like when we're talking about the idea of due process, how does this apply to people when we're deporting them? And we're not deporting them because they committed a crime, other than they came into this country illegally. So now we have to judge these people whether they came in the country illegally, when we can initially prove that they are not here legally, and now we got to ruin our judicial system with their time because they're overflowing us? What the fuck is that about?
Well, that was a very nice commentary and statement, Doc.
My question is, what about them not showing up for their hearing? Isn't that in violation if they don't show up or they don't attempt to make the process correct? If they are here and they don't do what they're supposed to do, or they say they're here on asylum, aren't they supposed to go to court and say, this is why I'm seeking an asylum? And if they don't do it, doesn't that give them a right to be deported?
As long as a deportation order is issued because they missed their hearing, yes. If a deportation order is issued, even if it's years ago, they can be picked up off the street, thrown on a bus, thrown to jail, and kicked the hell out of the country.
Bye, Felicia.
Hold on. Here's the other thing. Let's say someone had been here for more than 2 years. If they came here unlawfully, here's what they would have to show in order to be able to stay. They would need to be able to show the proof that they've been here for over 2 years. And this is just to be able to get the hearing, right? You have to be able to show utility bills, bank statements, pay stubs, lease agreements, medical and dental records, school records if you have kids, receipts with names and dates, and affidavits from employers, family, and community members. So these are ways that you can prove that you've been here for 2 years, and if you can't provide that proof, then you're going bye-bye. So it's possible that somebody could have physically have been here for 10 years, but let's say they didn't establish some of these things. Let's say they're, just living out of somebody's garage, didn't want to, participate in society, then yes, you could have been here for 10 years and still get removed. And then people would cry that, that oh, hey, they've been here for 10 years. But if you don't have the documentation that proves it, then could.
So, but that's my question. Why is the burden of proof on that? Because it's almost basically saying they're guilty of not being here for 2 years unless they can prove that they have been here for 2 years. So, why is the legal system shifted? Shouldn't the burden of proof be on the government to prove that they have been here less than 2 years?
Hang on. the burden of proof is different depending on what jurisdiction and what type of law you're talking about. The burden of proof is not set in stone.
If I could add to that,
but I agree with you, Uncle Steve. The thing is, like, when it comes to the burden of proof, you gotta prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
That's only in criminal cases. In a civil case,
Well,
let me finish. Let me finish.
You think illegal
Let me
aliens are
finish,
civil?
please.
You think illegal aliens are
I've
civil?
given you 2 warnings. Thank you. The burden of proof in a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt, which a lot of people consider over 95%. The burden of proof in a civil case is a preponderance of the evidence, which is more than 50%. And then, depending on what jurisdiction you're in and what type of case it is, the burden of proof may or may not shift or be different.
Okay,
So, do you think illegal aliens? Do you think illegal aliens are, Uncle Steve? Seriously, do you think that illegal aliens are civil or?
Seriously, I'm not an expert.
You won't answer the question.
Doc, the answer is I don't know.
You don't know if illegal aliens are civil or criminal.
Well, Doc, you tell me.
They're criminal.
Get the fuck out.
If it's a law being broken, it automatically makes you.
Actually, it's both.
And there
How is
you
this
go.
Wait. How is this?
I just wanted to say, by the way, I'm the one that moved Doc down because he said, "Get the fuck out." I just assumed he was talking about himself, so I helped.
Well, how is this civil?
Everybody mute up. Everybody mute up. Thank you very much. I definitely want to go to AJ, who I like and respect, even though I don't always agree with them. Good morning, AJ. AJ?
I think some of the issues are being conflated here. So I think people are assuming that due process means you're entitled to a full hearing before you're removed from the country. If everyone just takes a second to look up due process principles, what it gets at is making sure that your government is following the rules and procedures and the law that you're entitled to under the letter of the law before they take action. That's to prevent arbitrary or discriminatory action from the state. It doesn't mean that due process is the same thing for everyone in every situation. So when you come into the country, even if you've been there for less than 2 years, due process principles apply based on the definition I just gave, but it doesn't mean you get to have a full hearing before you're removed. Why? Because in the United States, there are certain exceptions like expedited removals where maybe you don't get a full hearing before you go, but that doesn't mean you've been deprived of due process.
And Steve, going back to what you were talking about with preponderance of evidence,
Yes.
with civil cases.
Yes.
In this case, I wouldn't say that, like, for example, the government, ICE agency, someone, the person says, I've been here for 3 years, let's say, and the government is arguing, no, you have to prove it to us. That, like, it's not that they have any evidence to the contrary. So, like, they don't have a preponderance of evidence at that point in time. However, it does seem like where does that come into play? That's the only question that I have before I have a.
Are you talking about an immigration hearing or a standard civil hearing?
Well, when it comes to this, or like in terms of determining who's
immigration. When you say this, you mean immigration?
Yeah, the topic that we've been.
I have no fucking idea.
That's what I was trying to just weigh in really quick, Pat. So, hey, Pat, really, just briefly, you asked why do they have to